Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Brash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is The Thinking Atheist Worldwide.
It is essentially a kind of an impromptu show tonight. A show that is completely unplanned. I sort of had the evening here, and I thought, well, how about an evening with friends? No topic, no theme, no agenda. Just a chance to connect. We've got a big storm kind of coming overhead. You may occasionally hear the thunder. If I disappear completely, it means lightning struck while I was wearing the headset, and funeral services will be pending. So I hope it doesn't happen. That would be terrible. I spent part of today reading. I was reading the just released book, the last book by Christopher Hitchens, and I'm only a few chapters into it, and it's very comforting. There's something about reading a book and hearing it in Hitch's voice. You know, you can almost hear him say it as you read it. And it's so far it's been quite good. I mean, he starts the book right off the bat. Talking about his diagnosis and, you know, jumping right into cancer, you know, and facing your own mortality. And in some ways, I feel a real sort of cloak of sadness over reading the book, because you have to then come to the realization that this is the last Christopher Hitchens book that will ever exist, that will ever be written. There will never be another Christopher Hitchens book ever. And I look back and I try to avoid cliche when I talk about the monumental influence that he had. It's like I happened upon a video, and I know I've told the story several times, but I'll tell it again. I happened upon a debate video on YouTube, and I don't even know why I Google searched it or YouTube searched it. I enjoy that kind of thing. I enjoy debates and discussion and normally constructive conflict. I enjoy documentaries. I enjoy real world type stuff. You know, I follow the news and politics and whatnot. And, I watched that video, that 90-minute debate at the 92nd Street Y. Well, the thunder's really Hitch himself. No, never mind. And even the dog knows something's up. Yeah. I think that 90 minutes may explain how I got here. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, if I look, not to be too cryptic about it, but if that day, at that moment, if I hadn't heard God challenged in such an overt way, if I hadn't seen the good rabbi get his ass kicked, God's expert just get destroyed on stage. And that led me to other videos, and then I discovered and heard for the first time names like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris. If I hadn't stopped at that moment and watched the video, the website might not exist. The videos might not exist. I don't know. I think I would have gotten there. I think I would have eventually, I think I was on the path, right? I was questioning. I was dissatisfied with the religious answers, but there's something about that 90 minutes that was very special for me. I normally don't get all misty-eyed when celebrities die, or well-known people, whether you call them celebrities or people of notoriety or famous people. When I got up and read the headline that Christopher Hitchens had died, I felt, and this sounds really sappy, forgive me, I felt a sense of real personal loss, like there will never be another. And I'm so grateful that we lived during his lifetime when we were able to see him in action, when we were able to see the topical headlines that were addressed day to day, and that we live in the era of YouTube, where so many of his speeches and presentations and whatnot can be experienced over and over and over and over. And our kids and their kids can go back. You know, it's on record. You know, unlike the stories of, say, Jesus Christ, which there's no record, which is a question I've always had. You know, Jesus, and it was a question Hitch had. Why would the creator of the universe's master plan be to appear 2,000 years ago before proper historical records could be kept? Why wait? Why do it then? Why not appear in the era of the video camera or, video, photographs, audio, historical records? I was talking to a theist, a pastor the other day, and he was talking about, we just know Jesus existed. We just know. Historians almost universally agree there was a Jesus. And of course, I'm like, well, no, actually they don't. And even if there was a Jesus, I mean, who knows? Let's say there was a guy. There's no proof he was God at all. And he said, absolutely, it's all anecdotal. It was all written down by the historians. And because the historians wrote it down, his life is as real as you or me. And I'm like, no, actually, there's photos of me. There's videotape of me. I got it right here. Your birth certificate. I got pictures of my mother. Around the time I was born, she looks miserable. I got it. Jesus doesn't have it, but I got it. Anyway, I'm reading it kind of slow. I'm taking my time to enjoy it, to get through it. And one thing about the Kindle, those of you who read on an ebook like a Nook or a Kindle may experience this. I love living in the era of having the book on your Kindle, where you can have literally hundreds of books at the same time. But I will say, I miss my trophies when I'm done. Know the feeling when you read a good book and you put it up on the shelf, right? It's up there on the bookshelf. And when you walk by, you can say, oh, yeah, that was a great book. And it's right next to another book by Dawkins. And it's right next to my Calvin and Hobbes collection. And it's right next to, something else. And it's right next to something else. And you look at those and they bring back memories, and people will walk by when they come over to the house and they say, oh, hey, man, you've read that? Is it good? Oh, yeah, here, let you borrow it. And then a year, 2 years, 3 years down the way, you pull it back out and read it again. That's the one thing I really miss, is my trophy wall, of having those up there. Part of me wants to order the Hitch book in hardcover just so I freaking have it, because I've got God Is Not Great in hardcover, and The Portable Atheist and whatnot, and the God Delusion, all those books. In his book, he was talking about a letter he received from a religious person, and there were many, many, many religious people who offered kindness and prayers, and this was their way of showing that they truly did care, as they were praying for his recovery. And Hitch was very magnanimous toward them. He was very gracious toward them. But there were also other people that spewed venom and called this horrible cancer God's judgment. And I don't recall the exact text of the letter, but it was basically, you got cancer of the esophagus. You've used your voice to blaspheme the Almighty God. Therefore, it is appropriate that the tool you use to debase him is now riddled with cancer and will be your demise. And I'll let you read the book if you want to see how Hitch dismantles the argument. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. But, I grow frustrated when I think about the equivocations that religion uses to divide. Sometimes I wish you could see the email inbox I've got. People just reaching out. My family has ostracized me, or I'm not speaking to my father or mother. I'm a college student. My parents have threatened to pull all tuition dollars unless I never say again aloud that I'm an atheist. I'm not welcome at my home for the holidays. They won't accept my calls. That's not a cliche. These things happen, and they happen a lot. Natalie and I have been together for years. I'm an atheist. She is a deist. I think she calls herself a Christian, but much to her chagrin, I say you're a deist because, she came from we both came from hardcore Christianity, and we both were knee deep in it, neck deep in it. But at this measure, she doesn't see the Bible as anything more than a book of stories. They kind of reflect the times, but they aren't necessarily things that might have happened or didn't happen, whatever. She sees, when she thinks of a God somewhere, she doesn't think of the Christian God. She just thinks, she believes that there is something, some watchmaker out there somewhere. And that's about as far as we go. So I would say she's a deist, and, then she gets pissed and... and we've had some rows over it. It's funny, to have this big difference. But largely, we've lived around it. I just love her with all my heart. She's a wonderful, precious lady. And we've had we built a home together. And every day when I get home, I see her, she just lights me up. And some people have asked, well, how can you be with your head of the Thinking Atheist website? How can you be with somebody? And it's really, I don't love her because she agrees with me. So the bottom line for me is she respects me. We don't destroy each other. We don't divide each other. We enjoy the very good stuff we have. So she tells me that there are people in her circle that have real concerns about her. What's she doing with this guy, this atheist? You should hear it come out of people's mouths sometimes. I mean, what is it? How could you sell out like that? Is he going to make you an atheist? You're going to walk away from everything we taught you? Is he going to change you? Is he going to isolate you from your family so that you never come? You wouldn't believe this stuff. I was like, what? What? That doesn't make sense. They sit around and wring their hands in fear. They just fear. This weird suspicion, this ignoring all of the wonderful things that she and I have had and have still in our family and all of these things. And yet to have someone look from the outside in and say, it's not valid because 2,000 years ago, anonymous Bronze Age primitives wrote down that you are unequally yoked. You do not share the same belief system. Therefore, you are unequally yoked, and this marriage is not viable in God's eyes. Oh, you're not married? Now it's really not viable. And of course, I feel my blood coming up as I find myself being held to a standard written by superstitious nobodies. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Meanwhile, when they watch television and they see, a celebrity gets married 4, 5, 6, 7 times, well, all of those are precious and ordained by God. Yeah, you signed on the dotted line right there, and you had a preacher at your wedding, so now you're a legitimate family. Yeah, you're going to divorce in 8 weeks? Well, that's too bad, but at least when you did it with God's law in mind, because God knows that you have to have a freaking signature on the piece of paper to make your family viable. Who are these people? I was talking to Dillahunty about his wedding last October. He said the biggest reason he did it is because of the tax benefit. He saved a little bit of money on taxes. Do you think he and Beth had a more valid relationship, a more loving, a more committed relationship once they jumped the broom? I don't think so. They'd been committed for years before that. So now I've got superstitious people, right? They believe the eye in the sky is watching. And despite the fact that she is cherished and loved and adored and taken care of and given security, Natalie is unequally yoked with an unbeliever, with an infidel. God. These petty rules that religion puts out in front of people to constrain them, to limit them. They do it with everything. They do it with everything. They've got rules about this and rules about that. Rules about relationships and rules about sex and rules about kids and rules about this. And if you don't fit into that cookie cutter, well, you're just not righteous. Just not righteous. Mm-hmm. Setting up all these opportunities for judgment to come down. To look down from a superior perch and to see people and go, they're out of God's will. I see it. I feel sorry for them. I will pray for them. I'll pray for you. That nauseating tone of voice that people give you. I'll pray for you. That's like saying to someone, I'm sorry you feel that way, which is not an apology at all, right? You ever seen an argument like that? I'm sorry you've decided to be such a bastard. That's not an apology. I'll pray for you. Looking down from afar. That's why I had that T-shirt made on the Thinking Atheist store. It's an awesome T-shirt that says, you pray for me, I'll think for you. It's just exactly how I feel about it. You pray for me, fine. I'll think for you. Normally, you just don't eat. There's just as much, if not more, gossip. Gossip's a sin. And deception and stirring up of strife in the church as there is out. Even Proverbs says not to rejoice at the calamity of another, right? Well, I'll tell you, there are many people within the church who just love crisis. They love calamity. They love calamity. They love drama. I'll get to the calls here in just a second, but I've had drama on the brain lately. I have a saying around the house. This is look, this isn't utopia here. I mean, we're not the Waltons. I mean, we have the same problems all other families have. But also, I have, and Natalie has as well, taken great pains to make sure that this is a safe place. Our home is a place of peace, right? Of peace and security and safety. Drama-free. And I always say to the family, I say, when you walk in the door, this place is DFZ. It's a DFZ, which stands for Drama Free Zone. Drama free. You're having a bunch of drama going on at school, kids, whatever, that's cool. You walk in this door. And everybody's come to appreciate that. They know when they're here, we can all just talk. And I come from an environment where I've always felt like if you have an issue, a challenge, a problem, or whatnot, you take it directly to the person who you feel has wronged you. You call them up, you knock on their door, you write them a letter, but you go and you don't say, "You bastard, you made me feel this way." Not like that. But you go to them and you say, "Look, this really hurt, and I really disagree with this, and I'm here because I feel like we got to talk." And even if it's constructive conflict, you go to the source and you figure it out. I don't call that drama. I call drama whenever somebody wrongs you or offends you. And I can think of 100 examples of people I know, family and friends. And they don't go to the person who offended them. They call everybody else they call everybody else. "Did you hear what they said? Oh, you won't believe what they said about me." And I told him, I said, "Well, you're not going to do this to me." And and then you know what he did? I was just so offended. "Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to put up with that. And if he does this, I'm going to say this. And if he says that, I'm going to say this. And then I'm not going to buy him anything for Christmas. And he had better, you know what? I'll get a restraining order." Mm-hmm. I mean, you just see it. It's all just escalating, right? The flames. So when they're done calling that person, and they call 20 other people, the people they've talked to then call 20 of their friends. "Did you hear what happened to so-and-so? Well, they called so-and-so and told them. Now, I heard this third party, but it's crazy. It's crazy. That bastard did this and this and this and this." And before you know, now it's a game of telephone, right? Everybody's freaking out. Everybody's sending emails and texts, and they're calling everybody other than the person who is directly involved. It's drama. And it's so unnecessary. The people who were concerned about Natalie, is she being tainted by the infidel? Mm-hmm. I worry that he's going to influence her and he's going to try to rip that belief in Jesus Christ right out of her. Well, she's a deist. Well, why not call me? Why not call me directly? You're 50 years old. Just call me. I'll tell you. I'll buy dinner. No, that didn't happen. Everybody calls everybody. And in the age of Facebook, Twitter, social media, blogs, websites, it seems like that is compounded. That phenomenon where people would rather pour gasoline on a fire than, sprinkle some water on it and say some words of kindness. Even if you were wronged or offended, but to go with a soft voice and seek true resolution. It's hard, too, when you see a community that prides itself on enlightened thinking do that very thing. When did we become so eager to divide? To feel superior by making someone else feel inferior, to burn a bridge rather than build it. I wrote on my Facebook page, "Drama feeds on itself. It's a self-replicating virus that spreads exponentially unless checked early. It also causes great damage that in many cases cannot be undone." Whoever said that Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me couldn't have been further from the truth, as words have the power to heal or wound, empower or deflate, rescue or destroy. I always assure my family that drama stops at the door. It stays outside of the walls of our little castle. If we have a problem, we take it directly to the person we feel has wronged us and in good faith work to find a solution. Or we ask a responsible third party to mediate and help us find a constructive solution. If those solutions don't work and no other solutions present themselves, we walk away. No rabbit phone calls to a long list of third parties, no calling out on Facebook and Twitter, no rumor mills, no yelling and stammering, no theatrics, no drama. This is our home. It's a drama-free zone. I know there are many in this world who aren't happy unless they're unhappy, who would rather stir the pot of dissent and division than offer a soft touch and a kind word, who lead with anger, who create soap operas in every environment they enter, who thrive on negativity, who are the poster children for drama. And they'll always be scratching at our front doors, metaphorically and physically, hoping to infect us. However, it is our choice as to whether we put out the welcome mat for the wailing, frothing, petty, and destructive elements that exist in the circles we inhabit. We can't change the agents of drama, but we can take steps to protect ourselves from the chaos they inflict. When I see drama, here in the free thought community or anywhere in my life, job, family, personal relationships, whatever, I try to step backward just a few paces, examine the situation, attempt to locate some high ground, and then renew my commitment to make my home and my life a DFZ. And I wish the same for you. I had somebody send me a message shortly afterwards. I guess she and her husband had been going through some drama with, I don't know, there was no context. I'm guessing family, friends, relationship type stuff. They were miserable. And they just needed a word of encouragement. You know what? Our home is what we make it. We may have to make some hard choices. We may have to hold our hand out and say, stop. Stop. It doesn't come in here. But we have the power to make our lives a place of safety and security, drama-free, in order to solve real problems and to love people and to figure it out. And if somebody comes along and it's just unfixable, we walk away. I guess 27 minutes of me rambling is plenty. Thank you for your patience with me. Let's go to the phones. 740, you're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. 740, who is this?
This is Jeff, Seth.
Glad you called, Jeff. What's going on, bro?
I've listened to every one of your shows. When I've seen you post on Facebook, let's just have an extra one, but I was all in. You had me at let's do.
Well, I occasionally will get a wild hair and decide, let's just do an impromptu show. I'm glad you enjoy them. I'm glad you're listening. What's going on?
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to talk a little thing what I call Christian insurgents.
Okay.
Insurgents is a word that in the last 10 years we've all kind of grown accustomed to, and I think these Christians are all insurgents into our very fiber of what America was founded on. I mean, they've infiltrated every crevice of our society. They're in our schools, they're in our government, politics, they're at our dinner table, they're at ball games, civic meetings, holidays, on our corners, billboards, radio, television, internet, mail, Boy Scouts. Hell, they've even got their own day, and they're still not so happy with that.
Yeah.
They come to your house. They leave pamphlets. They're even in your hotel rooms 24 hours a day, every day broadcasting on television. They try and get to your children at the school by forming those after school programs. They want their own schools, and then they want the same funding as public schools. They don't want to pay taxes. They use it as a business to acquire all they can, just to control as many as they can. They set their own rules as an employer. They get pissed when they're required to follow the same rules as every other employer. They picket dead soldiers' funerals, the very soldiers who died for their right to exist in the first place in our country. And to me, they're nothing but insurgents, and they're no better than the fanatical Muslims declaring jihad on everybody else.
They would argue that there's a war on religion. And I think that's a victim mentality. I think what happened was they operated nearly unchecked for so long that now, in the age of information, as you and I raise a hand of protest and say, not so much. Now they play victim and they say, it's a war on God. And of course, I'm like, well, actually, God's it's kind of been his party. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know, it's not like he's been in a corner sucking his thumb. Hell, he's had the whole party to himself for thousands of years. I don't think this is. Plus, if he is truly omnipotent, I think he could probably abide a few questions from some insects like you and me. He can handle that, right?
Sure. I mean, I'd like to at least have every 4 years a chance to vote his ass out. I mean, let's be democratic about it.
You know, when Rick Perry was running for president, Texas Governor Rick Perry, by the way, if you want to see some awesome video, just YouTube Texas Governor Rick Perry and then parody, because they had just roasted him to death. But he's attending those huge prayer revivals. They're praying for rain during one of the worst droughts in Texas history. You know, the crops are decimated and it's all horrible. And of course, God never shows up. They don't get rain for like 9 more months. And then it's a miracle. Oh, God answered the prayer. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
eventually it's going to happen.
I guess he was on the back 9 at Augusta or something, and finally just took him a while to get finished before he'd go over there and sprinkle some heavenly water on you. But, you know, I see God invoked. I see God bless America at the end of every speech. I see people using God as a way to increase polling numbers and to try to get voters, and it's just a tactic. And honestly, I just want to throw up a little bit in my mouth, just like you do probably. Just God. It's got to go.
Probably the worst thing I've ever seen as far as, and you know what you were speaking of there about the drama, what you described there was perfectly, I don't know if anybody, maybe Christopher Hitchens could have done it. He was the master, and I agree with you, everything on him. I've read several of his books. But what you described there perfectly was the religious propaganda machine, the drama. I mean, that's it to a T. That's what they feed on. That's what they feast on. They depend on the terror. They depend on the fright, and so they can gain their might.
And if they go out and they're on the offense, they're changing hearts and minds in this war, spiritual war. And then you come forward, they say, well, why do you have to be so vocal? Why do you have to tell people? And of course, you're watching them go tell it on the mountain, and you're going, "Hello, pot, kettle, nice to meet you."
Exactly. I mean, you spoke there a little bit earlier about being able to view and see, during Christopher Hitchens' lifetime, and being able to experience the age of internet and of Google and of all this. I am very thankful to be alive during this time. I'm also very thankful that I was not alive during Inquisition times.
No kidding.
Because they would have not just beheaded me and burnt me, they would have sliced me, diced me any way you can, because I would have definitely. I started to tell you one of the stupidest things I ever seen. I seen this guy that looked like Jesus, was dressed like Jesus. I think it was during Easter, and he was standing there, and he had holes drilled on his hands and on his feet. He was barefooted, like where the stakes would have been driven. And it was, a warm Easter Sunday, and you could see his palms were sweating, and the black marker that they used, it was, kind of running. And I walked up and I said, what are you supposed to be? And he goes, well, you don't know about Jesus. I said, oh, I know plenty about him. I said, and if that's what you're trying to represent there, I said, what's those little black dots there? He goes, well, that's where Jesus was crucified and staked to the cross. I said, "Yet, but you wear this death symbol on your chest. You put it on top of your churches." I said, "Besides that, with them holes in your hands, you wouldn't be able to eat M&Ms."
It reminds me of that cartoon where Jesus is playing peekaboo, and he's got his hands over his face. And the eyes coming through. Jeff, thanks for the call and helping us fill up a Friday night, my friend. It's good to hear your voice. I got to move on, but you take care, okay?
Oh, all right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.
I want to address something that came up during that conversation about the victim mentality of religion, where they always say, and it's almost invariable, it almost always happens, why can't you just leave religion alone, right? This is when they start to protest. They are out and they're replicating like a virus. They're spreading like wildfire. They're everywhere. And they are charged to do so by their holy books and their doctrines. And then you come forward and say, wait a minute, hang on just a second. Let's examine and make sure that none of this is complete, say, crap. And you bring up legitimate arguments that prove that it's less than perfect. Maybe even, I don't know, stupid. And they play victim. Why can't you just leave us alone? Why are you stealing my joy? Why can't you just let us believe what we believe? How come you got to say something? I'm not over there knocking on your door. And I'm like, well, actually, yeah, that's what you do. You're going door to door. You're going community to community. Do you see atheists taking mission trips overseas? What do you mean? What do you mean? Why can't you just leave us alone? You guys are on the offensive. So I wrote a blog that published at thethinkingatheist.com in January of 2011. And I'll just read it for you right now. And if someone ever comes to you and they say, why can't you just leave us alone to believe what we want to believe? How come? Especially on Facebook, right? They go, praise God, praise Jesus. God is good. Thank God for the pretty weather. Oh, there's a plane crash. Only 128 people died. 2 lived. Praise God. The doctors were able to put the cancer in remission on my uncle Volney. And it'll only be another couple of years before we have to go through it all again, praise God, blah, blah, blah. Next time they say, why can't you just leave us alone? You can refer to this, print it out, repost it, whatever. I don't really care. It says this. It says, the protests come every day from the religious, and they go something like this. Why spend your time disproving God? Why not just let people believe what they want to believe? Why can't you leave religion alone? As one YouTube commenter said recently, no one could explain to me why it's so important to convince theists to abandon their beliefs. Well, the answer is simple. Pages like this one exist because religion exists. Religion permeates our culture, shows up on our doorsteps with literature, scriptures, and threats of eternal damnation, influences our science books, contaminates our political systems, indoctrinates our children, and postulates that its doctrine must be followed lest we be destroyed in body, in soul, or both. Non-believers are simply responding to the avalanche of religious messages that bear down on us daily. Religion gets carte blanche to be as vocal as it wants, to knock on our doors and accost us in our homes, in our places of work, in our personal and professional lives. Believers are charged with a life mission to preach, teach, disciple, shout it from the mountaintops, and to go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Religion is everywhere. Ask yourself, when's the last time an atheist rang your doorbell with the good news of humanism? How often do you find a Richard Dawkins book in the dresser drawer of your hotel room, like a Gideon Bible? When was the last atheist temple erected in your neighborhood? Have you ever attended an atheist revival? Has atheism demanded 10% of your household income? How many dedicated atheist television channels come through your satellite dish? How many atheist verses were you instructed to memorize as a child? When is the last time someone thanked a farmer or even the cook at the dinner table instead of God? On a more radical front, What's the name of the last atheist who sawed the head off of an infidel, or sentenced a shrouded woman to death for displeasing an oppressive husband, or strapped explosives to his belt in order to kill hundreds in a public square, or publicly hung a gay person? It's everywhere. Religion is a pounding drum that has gone mostly unanswered for a long, long time, and religion is not satisfied with merely existing quietly in the homes and hearts of the faithful. Its very nature compels the believer to proselytize, preach, promote, convince, convert, and prevail. If you play on the team of the religious, your game plan is to stay always on offense. Throughout our history, those who raise a simple hand of protest against these advances have been portrayed as the real problem. Religion has attempted to marginalize and defeat legitimate questions and concerns by indignantly portraying any resistors as misguided, immoral, rudderless, angry, miserable, lost, and alone. And when skepticism challenges wildly improbable or impossible stories found in the Bible, the Quran, and other holy books, the religious wail, "Why can't you just leave us alone?" The irony is thick. And religion impedes curiosity and inhibits learning, as the much-maligned Creation Museum proves. It stymies critical thinking, it stretches us to believe the unbelievable, and it poisons the foundational teachings we are using to train up the generations of tomorrow. Pages like mine exist as a response, a counter-argument, to ensure that the cacophony of superstition does not go unchallenged. And if your belief system is so undeniable, so factual, so provable, so real, so true, certainly it can withstand the opposing viewpoints presented here and elsewhere. Certainly it can survive the acid tests. Just remember, religion began the argument. It amplifies itself before the world, and it threatens all mankind with punishment upon its rejection. We are atheists. We are moral, we are reasonable, we are thoughtful, intelligent, compassionate, happy, fulfilled, and well-informed. And as long as religion insists on fixing human beings who are not broken, we will respond with the evidence that we are not the problem. Back to the phones. 856. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Thanks for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, this is Athena.
Athena, thanks for waiting on me while I go off on another tangent. Glad you're here. What's going on?
You're very welcome. And I just want to say before I start, you are not overly sappy or cliched at all about the feeling loss over a celebrity thing. I mean, almost any death is tragic, but Hitchens was one of a kind, and his words helped so many people.
When I was
Absolutely.
at the Imagine No Religion conference in Kamloops, British Columbia last spring, Bill stopped everything, and they played the Hitchens tribute that I had produced on video. And at the end, all 300 of us raised a glass to Hitch, and I got goosebumps, and I got like teary-eyed. And I'm like, I am like a child. I'm weeping, almost weeping like a child. But that is the effect he has. And I'm not the only one. I hear that kind of story all the time. I'm glad to hear that, that you were the same, that you can relate. I'm not a total pushover.
Absolutely not. No, it's not like some casual. And again, it's almost always tragic, but it's not some casual actor or sports player. I mean, you almost find no one else who beat down arguments like that and can make people realize things the way he did. So, of course, it's going to touch a lot of people personally. It's a major issue.
Well, I'm glad you're calling tonight. What do you want to talk about?
Okay, so I've always wanted to talk to this with someone, but I don't have that many non-believer friends who might get it. So I went to a Christian school that sounds very similar to what you went to. Every time you describe it, I think, yeah, exactly. Only I started going in 7th grade. I think you said in 3rd grade, so wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever have academic day?
Academic day doesn't ring a bell. Describe what it was for me.
Well, it was when a lot of other Christian schools from the state, actually maybe it was various states, I think it was just the state, would all meet up in one place and perform various different things, dramatic acting, both comical and dramatic, and artwork, and some of it was religious preaching and teaching, and you could compete against other schools. All of it had to be appropriate, but not everything was religious themed. But in 10th grade, I went for Bible teaching. Only the guys could do preaching, of course. But both boys and girls could do Bible teaching. And it took place coincidentally around Easter. So I decided to do the Easter story as Bible teaching. You only perform it in front of judges. But as practice, the week before, you can go around to different classrooms in the elementary school and talk to them. Now, I went all out for this. I got an Easter basket to make it look fun and talk about Easter and chocolate. And then when I got more serious, I had pictures of Jesus on the cross and these giant thick nails that the maintenance man loaned me. And I pretended, I said, these are like needles compared to what Jesus had. And I just emphasized all this stuff about how awful it was Jesus went through and how one thief on the cross didn't take a chance and the other did. And there's no reason not to take that chance. You never know when you're not going to die. And I made it positive, like it's great what Jesus did, but at the same time, I'm inflicting fear. And when you're a third grader or fourth grader, and you have a 10th grader guest speaking, that's a big deal. I mean, I'm just saying, their eyes went wide. They were all excited and a little nervous and, interested. And they're so young. And the fact that I played a part in it, I feel sick every time I look back on it because to them, it's like, oh, she's an authority. She's high school. They have algebra and the big kid classrooms, and she knows what she's talking about. No, I just heard it from my authority. I knew nothing about it like I do now. I put this in their heads, and I will always feel guilty for that. They were so young, and I didn't know much about it. But
when I was at the Ascent of Atheism conference this last weekend in Denver, Colorado, I was part of an onstage panel. It included Aaron Raw and Matt Dillahunty, and we were all kind of talking about our personal experiences and whatnot. And Matt said something that resonated with me, and I'll bet it resonates with you. He talked about how he was going to be a minister, and he actually had an atheist roommate, and it was trying to defeat his atheist roommate's beliefs that he realized that he was himself standing on very shaky ground, and that was his epiphany. But he said the work that he does now down in Austin and online and speaking around the country and whatnot, he almost considers to be his penance for all of the time he was proselytizing and spreading bad information. And I feel much the same way. I was on stage what did I know when I was in freaking 9th grade speaking as a representative for Youth for Christ? I was this clean-cut, polished kid who was supposed to be giving other people the benefit of my worldly wisdom. I was a pod person. I couldn't even drive. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have a job. I hadn't seen the world. What wisdom did I have to give these people? It wasn't about that. It was all about indoctrination. It was about them having a young poster child, somebody that fit the bill that they could go parade out in front of other people. And I feel guilty sometimes, for all the times I bought it and promoted it. But the truth is that I'm cool with it. Part of me wants to draw on all those years because I think it makes me more effective in speaking to it now. And I bet the same's true for you. You can empathize a lot more with religion now because you were in it, can't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, and every time you go on saying they're not, a majority of them anyway, are not fueled by hate. It's more ignorance. Like, I can understand that. It's not like I never believed and I don't get it.
Yeah.
I was there, and I'm like, no, I didn't hate them. I just didn't agree, and now I can see it that way, so. Thanks for helping me fill a Friday night, and thanks for listening and for the kind words. Yeah, okay? Thanks for having this random podcast. It was actually awesome. I had no idea, and I saw on Facebook in 20 minutes, like, ooh, I'm going to go run to the market and see if I can call.
Well, you made it on the air. You did great. Take care
I
of
hope
yourself.
you don't mind I called while in the Amish market parking lot.
All right. Hey, you know, the other people can cook. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. We'll talk soon. Now, there was an Amish restaurant, by the way, just like an hour from here. And for those of you who don't know anything about the Amish, you know, they don't have electricity for some reason. They eschew modern trappings and conveniences, right? They wear the hook. They don't do buttons. They have the hooks in the eyes, and they wear black and white only, and they churn their own butter, and they work in their fields, and they don't drive cars, and they don't have television, all this stuff. So anyway, they have everything made from scratch at this restaurant, and you can't even call them. They don't have phones. Everything's made from scratch. You write them a letter, and you say, on this day, we would like to bring a party of, I don't know, 7 people. And they write you back and say, wonderful, we have an opening for 7. You are confirmed for this day. We look forward to seeing you at 6:30. All right? So then on that date, weeks later, you pack up the car and you all drive an hour down the highway. You're off in the weeds somewhere. And you go in, and they have all these gas lamps, gas lanterns and whatnot, and these little kind of dainty, dutiful women come out and serve the food. And the guys are back there working in the kitchen, making the food, and everything's made from scratch. And I am not kidding. Atheist, whatever. If you get the chance to eat at an Amish restaurant, it'll change your life. I mean, I'm just saying. You know, you won't walk away believing in God, but you will believe in the mashed potatoes and gravy. You know what I'm saying? You will believe in the corn on the cob. You will believe it was some of the best food we have ever had. 323, you're on the air. Thinking Atheist Radio Podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth. My name's Eric.
Eric, I made myself hungry. Right now, I'm kind of thinking some.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm calling from Los Angeles, and I'm kind of glad you talked about Hitchens because, I've been reading some of his stuff, and I just finished reading The God Delusion. So, there are very few people just like yourself that spread the positive word of atheism, I guess you can say.
Well, he was in my mind, to say he's one of a kind is so cliche, but I feel that in my mind, I look at Harris and I think, well, he's all right. And Dawkins is kind of getting long in the tooth. And Daniel Dennett's a nice fellow, but he doesn't have the verve that Hitchens had. When we lost Hitch, we lost something unique and powerful out there. And I don't know what will rise up in its place, but I certainly hope we see some other charismatic, forceful, yet accessible people like, hyper-intelligent people get out there and do that. Ain't going to be me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I hear you. But this ends up leading into what I called about. For the last, 2 weeks, my girlfriend's been telling me, I've been a little bit too much of an evangelical atheist, preaching too much, getting in too many debates. She's been telling me to lay off it, and I kind of understand. I think for myself, I ended up being a little bit too militant in my atheist views and, just crapping all over religion, any opportunity I got, the slightest thing used to get me upset. I would hope that Jehovah's Witnesses will knock on my door just so I can just blow up in their face. But, I've been kind of laying off that way of thinking. And a funny thing is, I tell my girlfriend, all right, fine, I won't preach any more atheism. I won't stay out of my, it'll stay out of my conscience. I'll just leave it alone. And I'm walking to school, and I'm on my way to class, and apparently there's a club membership where the school campus clubs are trying to get members. And lo and behold, 2 Christians jump up in front of me, and they ask me to join their club. I have my headphones on listening to your podcast, and so I'm listening to your podcast, and I'm heading on my class, anthropology class, which is on religion. And I have 2 Christians jump up in front of me and say, hey, do you want to join our club? They hand me their flyer. I look at it, and I see it's a Christian club membership thing. And I couldn't help but be offended. And I just reacted. I said, F no, and I handed it back to them. And then I quickly apologized. I was like, you know what, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to curse at you or swear at you. Here's your flyer. No, thank you. And they're like, well, why? Are you already part of a Christian club? And I said, I was like, crap. I'm thinking in my head, do I even tell these people? And I told them, you know what, I'm an atheist. And I handed it back to them. And then they stopped me from walking, and they said, well, why are you an atheist? And I was like, well, the same reason why you don't believe in Allah in Odin and Zeus and Mithra and Dionysus and Poseidon and a list of many other gods. They're like, well, God is the truth and the way and the light. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what the other religions say, and you have no proof on anything that they're saying that's contradictory to your beliefs, I mean, their beliefs are just as valid as yours, but you don't practice this, do you? And they're like, well, no. And then they ended up getting to the point where the guy's like, well, how can you be good without religion? And I tell him, well, if anything, I think we're good in spite of religion. I was like, look at you, you're a club membership, and you're like right next to a lesbian, gay club. I mean, I don't see you going out there and preaching the word to them, trying to kill them. In spite of religion, you're actually being good, and it's inherently in you not to do what the Bible says. I mean, would you stone a woman for not being a virgin if you married her? Do you think a rapist should marry the woman that he rapes? I mean, do you believe in killing someone who ends up throwing semen on the floor? Do you believe picking up sticks is enough to warrant death? Like, you don't believe in any of this. So in spite of your religion, you're an actual good person, and you should have seen their face, Seth. And this is like after like 2 weeks of being berated by my girlfriend, like, to not talk about this stuff. And I'm thinking about the whole efficacy of, like, is it actually effective to debate people? I had never seen two young adults with like tears in their eyes after I just like crapped all over religion and God, and you saw their face. And I felt like, you know what? Somewhere out there, like, if there was something, Hitchens would be probably looking down at me and just like, patting me on the back, like, there you go.
If you were running for office today, I would vote for you. I had somebody in the chat room say they disagree with me that we should be kind to everyone. And I think what they're misunderstanding is that, it's true. I'm a teddy bear. I'm a softie, and I love people. I'm not saying you'd be a pushover. And honestly, if someone accosts you and they say, come to our house of indoctrination, is essentially what those two guys are doing. And you probably easily know the Bible better than they do, and you use their own scriptures to expose the fact that everything that is good about them happened in spite of religion, not because of it. Sometimes the bitter medicine, the bitter pill, is still a necessary medicine and good for you. I think that is brilliant.
You know what's something? I couldn't help but like be like on cloud nine. I walked, and I kind of felt bad at first, but then I was like, you know what? I'm probably the only person who's going to have enough guts or enough sense to tell these people what they believe in isn't necessarily what's true, because they're so shielded in like their own little belief in that little inner circle that they just hear the same thing over and over and over again. And I thought, you know what, just to give them a sense of a different way of thinking, that maybe, maybe if you realize you're an atheist as well to all these other religions, maybe your religion isn't exempt from ridicule or from disbelief. And you know what? I couldn't help, and I was just laughing the whole way to class, and I felt bad. I truly did not. But before I left, I shook their hand and I said, thank you, but just as it's your right to believe, it's my right not to believe. So here you go. Thank you, guys. And I shook their hands, and I saw them visually shaking, like their eyes got watery, and I just walked away. I was just like, man, I should email him, or I should email the Thinking Atheist, or do something, because
that's healthy. Yeah, honestly, they're arguing emotion, and they're arguing indoctrination, and you made a stellar argument, and you used examples out of their own holy book of hideously unsupportable, unbelievably immoral acts perpetrated by or endorsed by Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament and the New. Right? He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. You did brilliant. I want to shake your hand. Well played.
Yeah, I had one more thing, though. I added one more thing. He's like, well, how do you know that there is? And I was like, well, look, what is your last name? Like, I had a Hispanic last name. I was like, so you're Mexican, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, think of it. The Aztec people had their own gods, these Mayan gods, these Aztec gods, and they used to sacrifice people to their gods every day. Like, they would sacrifice them for harvest or whatnot. And along comes the Spanish and introduce their god. And then they look at, like, your ancient people and say, you guys are savages. Don't you know it's not about quantity? It's about quality. We had this Jewish carpenter that already killed. And I was like, you see a correlation between human sacrifice and religion? Like, I mean, do you not see that? I mean, I'm not lying, you guy. Yeah. And when I said that, that's when I saw the waterworks. I was like, damn it, I'm just going to keep pushing and pushing. And And yeah, but lo and behold, I just think that there's a positive message for atheism without being a dick. I think like Dawkins is like a beautiful writer, but he's such an asshole. Like when you see him like speaking, and he's like Hitchens doesn't do that. Hitchens has like this charm and this charisma that's infectious. You can't help but smile when he proves a point. He makes you look stupid, but he'll make you smile while he's doing it. It's just like this unbelievable quality that he has. Well, I just want to thank you for your job, Steph, and I'll leave you be, and thanks for putting on this podcast on Friday, man.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm glad you called. Well done, and keep fighting out there. Okay, we'll see you later.
All right. Okay, bye-bye.
I disagree a little bit on Dawkins. I've heard it said before that Dawkins is he's bitter, he's acerbic, he's an asshole or whatever. I've seen Dawkins. I've seen him do his speeches, and I've seen him do his debates, and he does have kind of that prickly Brit kind of a thing, that might come off. But I personally don't see that in him. Here's a great example, and I don't know why I do this to myself, but it draws. I do know why I do it to myself, because it draws a reminder of how debating with the supposed experts, the apologists, the theology professors, the people who work at the Creation Museum or whatever, debating with them actually draws a huge circle around how glad I am that I walked away. And there's a 7-part, it's like 7 10-minute segments on YouTube. Richard Dawkins debates creationist Wendy Wright, Wright. Now, very few people have been able to get through the entire interview. It's very informal, shot with one camera. He walks into her office and he shakes her hand, and he's very kind. And they have a legitimate discussion. And he's challenging her as to and she's like, well, where are the transitional fossils? And of course he says, well, we have them, and go to the museum and see some examples. We have the proof. And then later on, well, where's the proof? And he's like, well, I just told you, we've got the proof. Now, he was polite. He was hugely polite for the whole thing. You and I, we probably would have spontaneously combusted by the time the debate was over, or just walked out. I am wasting my time with you. You're a pod person. Dawkins was not. He was confident, but he was direct, and he was polite. And he's right about Hitchens. Hitchens was able to do it with a sense of personality and humor and warmth. There was more of a performer there. There was some intangible there. But I think when I go out, and I don't do a lot of debating because most of the time it's a waste of time. But if I do some debating, I always do it if there are others watching or listening. It's rare that I'll do like a one-on-one, unless somebody just, hey, I want to save you. I just got to save you. Let's have coffee. I try not to do those, but occasionally. But if we're going to have a dialogue, a discussion, I try to make sure there are other people, because the debate's not for the person I'm not ever going to convince, right? He's closed off. He's on the offense. He's trying to go out and be God's champion. It's not about trying to fix him. It's about making an argument that reflects how ridiculous the theist position is, as dozens of other people or hundreds or thousands of other people watch in the wings and go, "Jeez, that's exactly what happened to me with Hitchens and the rabbi at the 92nd Street Y." He wasn't going to convince the rabbi. The rabbi wasn't going to convince him. But all the people online and all the people in the audience and the auditorium who are watching, they're digesting it. They're weighing it out. Who won? Who lost? What information is correct? What's not correct? What passes muster? What will I go find out more about? And I think you can go into those debate arenas and be nice. Usually. I think you can walk in and be gracious and thank your host and thank your antagonist for their time. And I think you can keep an even voice And I think you can go and make and give great, there's a great sort of meme floating around the internet. It says, don't raise your voice, improve your argument. Well, there are times I think when it's good to kind of, for emphasis, you'll raise your voice. Hell, I do it on this show, just for a punch. Bam. I'm looking for emphasis. But most of the people who are shouting all the time, I think, are compensating for either a lack of a good argument or a lack of maturity. They're always screaming. They're always screaming. They're always screaming. If you can go in, be even tempered, and show do what this guy did. Just if you practice the Bible, you'd be in prison, possibly on death row right now. You are moral despite your Bible. I mean, just a direct, in your face, not watered down rebuttal to the Christian claim. But when you're done, you shake their hand and say, thanks for your time. I wish you the best. Got any questions? Call me. That's what I'm talking about. 908. Thanks for your patience. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hey, can you hear me right now?
I can hear you right now. Who's this?
This is Evan, and I'm 13 years old.
Evan. What's going on, my friend?
Nothing really. I just first off want to say thank you. You pretty much allowed me to grow a pair and admit that I'm an atheist. So I thank you for that.
Well, 13 is about the time that happens, my friend. I'm just saying. It's just one of those it's basic biology. You'll take that in a year or so. So are you in the car now? Are you riding with somebody? What's going on?
No, I'm actually just in my bed right now. I've just been waiting for you to answer.
Well, I'm sorry it took so long. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I actually just wanted to talk about something real quick and end with the face palm.
Okay.
Actually, I'm just going to start with the face palm because I forgot the story.
Well, take your time, my friend. It's a Friday night. We're just hanging out. We're friends, and we're among friends. What you got?
Believe me, I'm nervous right now.
No, you're good.
So I was looking on Facebook earlier today, and I was just looking through a bunch of pictures, and I saw this one picture about some comment a religious person made versus an atheist, and it hurt. So basically, what had happened is the atheist he had said that he was saying to the Christian. Damn, hang on, somebody's calling me. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So how's everybody? Yeah, me too. I've got this pain right here. Sure. Cooling down though. It's about 57 degrees outside. We had some rain earlier. It was 100.
Hi, I'm back.
Oh, good. He's back. All right. So your face palm moment.
Yeah. So it started off actually that the Christian said that, like, how is a dog going to evolve in 15 years? And the atheist said that doesn't happen. Like, evolution takes millions of years and all that stuff. We all know that. And this Christian, I just don't know. I'm scared for this guy. He said, you say it's going to take millions of years for my dog to evolve, but my dog's going to be dead by that
time. A little Sparky ain't going to live that long. It's impossible.
I know. I just thought about that. I was like, what?
No, I facepalm with you. I've got the marks to prove it. Good stuff, man.
All right, so I remember my story now. Right. Is it okay if I say it?
Hit me.
Yeah, so it was talking about, like, how the natural selection process works in evolution. And basically this religious person said, I think it's disgusting in at least human terms that the natural selection process happens, which would kind of mean, like, that anybody who is, like, challenged in whatever, like, you can't see in front of them, like, if you have really bad eyesight or even if you have, like, a mental problem, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was basically like that. But then I kind of thought about it for a second, and I'm like, that doesn't really happen anymore when it comes to human terms, because we have people that help each other. We have glasses. We have all that stuff. So the natural selection process doesn't really continue anymore when it comes to humans. I mean, it does to an extent, but
it doesn't work the same way it does in animals. So you can't, I guess when it comes to humans, you can't really use that argument because it's not really there anymore.
Well, we've intervened in how survival of the fittest and all of that. We've sort of intervened in our own. We're examining and attempting to manipulate our own genome, for Pete's sake. So yeah, we do have a hand in what happens to our species moving forward, and I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I probably won't be here to see it because I don't live that long.
Well, maybe I will.
All right, take care of yourself. Thanks for the call.
You're welcome.
All righty.
Thanks for everything you do.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I hear the same arguments over and over again when I hear arguments from the religious. I got another one, an email this week, which was, if atheism is all there is, then I think it spoke to the morality thing or anarchy. And of course, they act like they're the first ones to even think of it. And what an insult it is to posit that unless they have an archaic book written by anonymous Bronze Age primitives, unless they had this and an invisible deity, an eye in the sky watching over them, giving them really sophisticated rules like don't hurt other people, don't kill other people, don't steal from other people, and don't sleep with their wives. Unless they had that, they would be running in the streets. Julia Sweeney has her a stage play called Letting Go of God, and she was talking about the character of the atheist and people running around murdering people. And she actually says it just like that, and that's what people expect. Well, Steve, if that made any sense, that the large percentage of people here in America and the huge percentage over in Europe who call themselves non-religious, right? Statistically, everyone would be dead. If you got 18 to 20% non-belief and they have no morals, that is essentially a recipe for blood running like rivers in the streets. They refuted their own argument. It makes no sense to me. 207, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
This is John.
John, what's going on?
Not much. I was going to refer back to something you were talking about earlier. When I first told my mother I didn't believe in God, we were driving up to work, and I was defending evolution to her. So we got there, and she asked me, do you still believe in God after a while? And I said, no. She broke down crying, told me I was going to hell, but not in a threatening way. After that, I was going to tell my family in my own time frame, but she got on the phone, like you were saying earlier, your rumor mill. And I started getting all the daily emails from ICR and stuff. I have a set of emails here where my grandfather was emailing his pastor about me and my father, telling his pastor how foolish me and my father are for not believing in God. What's egging at me is I really want to respond to some of these, but it's going to start like World War III and get me cut off from all of my family.
Well, you're going to choose those battles. I'm never going to change my parents. And even, I myself, I don't need to. I just want boundaries. I think if they're pounding on your door and they're sort of committing emotional blackmail on you, believe what we believe or else, or they're going after your kids, or they're in some proactive way stepping over the line, then you got a problem. But, if they're kind of long in the tooth, if they're up there in years, the die is cast, I think the best move, honestly, is make your argument, let them know how you got where you're going to get, and, take care of your own house and let them take care of theirs. I just don't see a reason to go and pound on their door and tell them that, hey, your Bible's crap. You're just not going to get anywhere with it,
I agree. I'm 17, actually, but...
well, that's tough. So you're living under their roof right now.
Right.
Well, talk to me. Are we talking about, things kind of thick at the dinner table these days? Are you... is it...
I try to avoid discussions now because of how much people talk after the fact, and I'm afraid, I know I get misrepresented a lot from these emails I get. So, and everything I say gets skewed 180 degrees and turned entirely against me, whether or not I say it offensively or not.
So you probably heard all the, how can you be moral? How can you have any joy in your life? What's the purpose for living if there's no heaven? Those are the kind of things you're catching?
Oh, everything.
Well, I mean, what do you want to do? Or is it driving you crazy? Or are you gonna bide your time and until you get out and get a home and family of your own? I mean, you know, I mean, 17 is kind of a tough age. You know, you're an adult, but you're not an adult, right? So what are you gonna do?
My knee-jerk reaction is to respond, and I've responded to a few emails, and I tend to write in a sort of cold fashion. So what I wind up doing is ticking people off when I respond. But that's not really my intention most of the time. So what I normally do at this point is ignore the things. But my knee-jerk is to just respond to it, shoot it down entirely, and add a commentary at the end of that.
I've been going through 3.5 years of it. And I'll tell you, I think you make the argument once, and then you're done. And a lot of people who are normally younger than 17, and I'm no expert, it's just one person's perspective. If I get a call from a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, I mean, I remind them, you are under the guardianship of your parents. You know, they are your parents. And, you know, you are under their roof. And if many of them forced to go to church and they're miserable, and some people are going to Catholic school and they're miserable, and I try to encourage them to turn this situation and look through the looking glass the other way. Instead of looking at it like I'm trapped here for 2 or 3 years and 4 years till I can get out. And church is driving me crazy. I think you treat it more like a forensic experiment. You use that time to absorb the culture of the church, what people say, how they act, what the church teaches, what their scriptures say. You can use this time to essentially become an expert on the doctrine so that when you are out there, you can better dismantle those arguments in the arena of ideas. Who better to go out and talk about the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church or the Mormon Church?
I was raised Southern Baptist, homeschooled, actually.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could use that time to... You're just putting bullets in the gun. And then when the time comes and you're on your own and you've become more comfortable in your own skin and you've chosen a life and a career and whatnot, whatever your plans are, you can look back and say, no, hey man, you got questions? I'll give you the answers. I'll give you their teachings and the facts that refute them. I mean, it'd be amazing.
Right. My mother made 2 critical mistakes when she wanted me to be religious, and those were teaching me critical thinking and giving me a laptop with internet access.
The internet, it's the tool of Satan.
It is.
He's out there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's laughing right now.
He's laughing out there right now. It's high-speed evil. Mm-hmm. It's everywhere. Well, I wish you the very best, and I'm so glad you're listening and part of this Friday night show. Thanks for calling.
All right. Thank you very much for doing the show. I listen to it all the time. This is actually the first time I've listened live.
That's awesome. I'm glad you called in.
I love listening to it while I'm working and driving and everything.
Dude, I love the idea there are more and more teenagers who are just thinking critically. And I always say, look, I don't want you to. My goal is that you are an atheist. My goal is whatever skin you end up in, it's yours. It's not inherited. You're not emotionally blackmailed into it. You put the puzzle pieces together and you choose your worldview, and it's yours.
That's the problem I have quite frequently, is that a lot of people don't seem to have any backing for it other than this is what everybody believes.
Welcome to religion. And it's been going on since the dawn of religion. Trust me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I write a blog and stuff that has like no traffic, but it feels good to just vent it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
right,
helpful to me to.
Well, what are you, a senior this year or junior?
I'm a senior, and I'm taking college courses to both finish my senior year off and knock off better than half my freshman year of college.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to see you out there swinging for the fence.
One of those is a critical thinking class, which is really good at this point.
I wish I'd had those when I was in school. Instead, we had Bible. We didn't have critical thinking. Take care of yourself, my friend. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
I remember my senior year. I have a lot of fond memories of school, even though it was a religious school. Trust me, it was a great school. I mean, we had a ball, and it wasn't that cliche, everybody's in uniform walking around and it was like a regular school. But except we had Wednesday chapel and there were Bible classes. I mean, but it wasn't hugely restrictive. And I remember my senior year, I couldn't wait to get out. I could not wait. I was thinking, 12 years. You look at graduation just coming around the corner, you know, and now you're into Christmas, last half of the year. Now it's spring break. Now you're into May. Now you're looking at the end of May and you're thinking, I am this close, man. And then that day comes when you go up there and get your diploma and you're done. And then you look around at your life and go, now what the hell am I going to do? What now? Crap. Now I got to go out and be responsible. Thank you for being a part of tonight's impromptu Friday night show. It's been a real pleasure to be able to just hang out, to not have a real agenda, just to sort of go wherever the flow takes us. We will do a regular time podcast next Tuesday. And I also want to encourage you to be a part of the DPR Jones Magic Sandwich Show, Doctors Without Borders charity. It's a mouthful. All the info's on my Facebook page, but it starts in a little over 12 hours. And we're, I think, raising $30,000 for Doctors Without Borders, a wonderful organization doing wonderful work. We got a bunch of stuff up on an eBay auction. There's like a 24-hour streaming podcast. My particular section is going to be on Sunday morning, 9 Eastern. Be a part of it. All the details on the Facebook page. We'll see you next time on the Thinking Atheist Radio Podcast.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. thethinkingatheist.com.